Okay, you're good.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for being here. I know we have several people on Google Hangouts. So, Manny, if you'll tell us who we have on Hangouts.
As of right now, we have Claudio, Devin, Kim Edmondson, Oscar, and we just lost Tia Simmons, so she should be back here in a second.
Okay, sounds good. And in the room, we have Mari Zamora, our Director of Federal Programs, Ms. Leslie Shimomura, and she is our Media Center Coordinator. Devin Haynes, our Math Coordinator, Christy Corson, our Purchasing Director, Oscar Rodriguez, our Technology Director, and then Mr. Jose Ortiz from Fair Meadows, Assistant Principal and a Campus Instructional Materials Coordinator, Ashley Logan, ELAR Secondary Coordinator, and Claudio is with us from Technology as well. So thank you to everyone who's with us. We appreciate you being with us. The first thing I'm going to do is direct us to our agenda. I've scheduled an hour and a half. It looks like I put 3 as the start time, but 4 is our start time. I scheduled an hour and a half. I don't anticipate that the meeting is going to take the entire time, but I did want to schedule that amount of time since I knew that we were going to be coming together both live and via Hangouts, and we have a lot to cover, this being our first time getting together. So a lot at the time in case we need it, but I don't think we're going to need that much. Also, as we look at the agenda, I want to start by thanking everyone, welcoming you, and appreciate you so much for serving on the Instructional Materials Oversight Committee. This is a new committee in our district, and so we are very excited to get it going and to have so many members that will be participating on this committee. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and let's see. Let's review. I will review that. I don't believe you have that, Manny, to display. But on our committee, I would like for everyone to have an idea of the members that will be serving. So let me review that with us. We do have a representation from the district level. So from CNI, I'm here to support and represent. We will have a director of finance with us. We have our director of purchasing and technology in the room, and state and federal programs. Career technology, Shalante Payne is a committee member. And then also we have one of our directors who's out right now, but when she comes back, she'll be serving, and I'm serving in that capacity right now to support our bilingual ESL students. Our director of special education will also be supporting this work. And as a matter of fact, special education is having a training right now that's conflicting. So several of them won't join us today. But one of the benefits of the manner in which we're conducting our meeting is that our videos, our meetings are being recorded. So whether you in the future want to go back and review some conversation that we had, or are not able to attend a session and want to go back and review that, you'll be able to do that. So we're glad to be able to have that available. Then we also have our ELAR coordinators and other content coordinators, our math coordinators, science coordinator. So that those are Christy Mullins, Ashley Logan, Tavia Johnson, Devin Haynes, who is here with us. Ashley's with us as well. And then Dr. Fanta Friday. And then we have Leslie from the Media Center. And then we have principal representation from all of our campuses, Tangi Towles representing our elementary schools. And then Mr. Ortiz is here as our campus instructional material coordinator representing elementary as well. And then we do have a parent, we're expecting Mr. Michael Latta to be joining us to represent the elementary schools. We're still in progress of identifying parents from the other levels, but we are looking forward to having our parents on our committee as well. Then we will have intermediate school principal, campus instructional materials coordinator, and the same for middle and high. So we're excited and grateful to have these folks on our team, and we will evaluate the committee. And as necessary, we will add if we find that we left someone off, need representation from a different segment or area. We want to be sure that all of our campuses are represented in our content areas and anything we can support from a curriculum instruction standpoint. Okay, so any questions or thoughts before we proceed on our agenda? Okay. All right, so I'd like to give you the overview of the purpose and the role of IMOC, the Instructional Materials Oversight Committee. One of the ways I'm going to do that is by sharing our November board presentation. Dr. Thurston Lamb shared the presentation with the board in November. I was not here to do that, but he did that for us, and we greatly appreciate it. I'm going to also talk about our meeting frequency and then review of our typical agenda and our next meeting. So let me go ahead and start back with our November board presentation. So Manny is going to display that or project it. And what I'll do, it looks like everyone in the room primarily has electronics, so if you can pair up with somebody, I'll email that presentation to everyone in the room so that you can open it up on your tablet if you need to.
It's not sharing.
So we'll be right with y'all on the video in just a second if we're having some difficulties there.
Okay, I guess I have to have it like that. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So I'm getting. Okay, so I'm forwarding the presentation now. Oh, go ahead.
I can't.
Is there anyone? Okay. Okay. Manny's going to get that going on the TV, but you'll also have it in your email if you'd like to open it up, and I'll get started with that. Okay, so this is the presentation that was shared with the board. Just to kind of bring y'all up to speed, I shared an IMOC overview with our SLT, the superintendent's leadership team. I shared it with our principals and DLT, and also now sharing it here in IMOC with you after our presentation to the board. So just getting to a point where everyone understands and knows what IMOC is, its function, its purpose, its role. Really, truly, the biggest purpose that I see for it and the work that we do is to have collaboration so that everybody knows decisions that are being made. We're able to make informed decisions and then to carry those out flawlessly. So that is the goal and the desire and the work we do in instructional materials. Okay, so our immediate priorities as a committee is first and foremost to be established. So that's what we're doing here today. We're becoming established as an instructional material oversight committee. One of our primary tasks then is to establish a Proclamation 2019 subcommittee. We've been working on that now and are going to share some updates with you as part of our new business today. That I've been doing quite a bit of work with a core adoption team that I'll bring you into the light of, and want you to be aware of the work that they're doing. So we have a core adoption team that's been working and supporting establishing that Proclamation 2019 subcommittee. And which, if you're unfamiliar with Proclamation 2019, that is our English language arts and reading, Spanish language arts and reading, K-8 adoption. So we're adopting materials now. I think that says K-5, that's K-8. And so along that, planning, selection, and adoption implementation. That right now is the priority of the Instructional Materials Oversight Committee. We've got a lot of other work to do, but from an immediate priority standpoint, that is what we're focused on. Any thoughts or questions before I leave that? Yes, it's K-8.
Next year's high school.
Right.
K-5 Spanish.
Yes, K-5 to Spanish, right. That's what it was I was looking at. So our background information, this is where you get the instructional materials allotment background information. So this allotment was created in 2011 by Senate Bill 6. It provides funds to districts to purchase instructional materials, and it's dispersed for a biennium. So over a 2-year period is where we receive the disbursement of these funds. 2018, what we're currently living in, is the second year of the current biennium disbursement. And so the current balance in IMA is approximately 2.3 million. And we'll look at more detailed information here today. Any questions on that? Okay. The next thing we shared with the committee is the purpose of IMOC, and that's to ensure transparency, accountability, and open participation throughout the instructional material selection and adoption process. So think about, we think about traditional textbooks. To kind of give a little history on instructional materials allotment, back in the day, some of us have been in this business for a while, and we know that at that time, previous to 2011, our textbooks, when we needed something, we would submit the order, the state would pay for it, and we were done based on our enrollment. If it matched, they'd send us all the books we need. In 2011, when the instructional materials allotment came into play, a couple things changed. One, another allotment that we used to receive called the technology allotment, that one went away, and it's all now bundled up into this one umbrella of the IMA. What makes it very, very challenging is that a lot of times it's just enough money to meet our traditional textbook needs. So districts, committees like ours take the guidance of the leadership and carry out the use of the funds. So we want to make sure that we're budgeting appropriately, being good stewards of the funds that are dedicated to this purpose. And so that's why we exist, to have those conversations and set our priorities, because we know that with the funds we have available, we don't have enough to meet every single need. So we have to prioritize those needs and then make those purchases match. So along with that, we're supporting all of our district goals, and our responsibility is primarily to oversee the selection of instructional materials and expenditure of the instructional materials allotment. And so the IMOC is also establishing subcommittees as appropriate, which right now includes the adoption cycle. Okay. All right, so the subcommittee, what is it and what does it look like? What is Proclamation 2019? We talked about that just a little bit. State adoption happens now, fall of 2018, and selection in the spring so that we can also order those materials in the spring, and then have implementation going into the 1920 school year. You see there a listing of everything that's part of this proclamation. Doesn't mean we're going to adopt every single one of these things, but it's what's open and publishers are sending us publications for at this time. So ELAR 6 K to 8, Spanish language arts K to 6, English language learner arts 7 to 8, handwriting K to 5, both English and Spanish, spelling 1 to 6, both English and Spanish, and then personal financial literacy. So the membership of this particular committee is selecting a variety of administrators, teachers, coordinators, key staff, parents from SBD and presentation. At last count, we had about 60 people on the Proclamation 2019 subcommittee. So we're doing our absolute best to make sure we get a wide selection of individuals to give us input and feedback. So the timeline that we're working on right now is establishing IMOC and the Proclamation 2019 subcommittee. So that's the work we've been doing and we're bringing officially to you today. Planning and review of the materials. That's the work that the core adoption team has been doing that I mentioned to you a moment ago. Create an instructional materials landing page on the district website. That's a goal that we're working on as we speak. And then moving into the spring, continued review and selection of the instructional materials with support from Learning List. So we're doing work with a company called Learning List that supports school districts by providing a review of materials. And it's kind of, I view it kind of as a clearinghouse. So we want everyone on this committee to be very familiar with what that is. At this time, from a district standpoint, access to Learning List stops at the district level. None of our campus staff, including principals, have access to it, but we plan on a future rollout for that. We just didn't feel right now was the right time for that introduction. But everyone on this committee will have access to that and can use it as needed. Learning List is also supporting us in our adoption process. So we want to make sure you're in the loop on that as well. And then also in the spring, our goal and our expectation is to bring to the school board the recommendations of the materials that have been selected as part of Proclamation 2019 for adoption of those instructional materials and to begin preparing those materials to be ordered. And then in the earliest summer possible, we'll begin to order those instructional materials, receive instructional materials, and then also have plans in place already so that we can carry out professional development and implementation. So that's the timeline we're working under. So we've been working very, very fast in order to keep it moving while also planning and implementing. So any thoughts or questions before we leave that overview?
Okay. You say the sooner you order, the better. Sometimes some of that stuff that Misty would order in June, it would show up before school started.
Right, right. And I think also one of the issues that comes into play is that, for example, the IMA funds will be available in July. Right now, we're going to be rolling some funds forward, so we may be able to start some ordering earlier. Yeah, so we'll definitely keep that in mind. So thank you. Okay, Manny. So back to the agenda then. That's the overview of the board presentation. and gives you an indicator of our purpose and our role for existing as an instructional materials oversight committee. One thing I'd like to talk about is the meeting frequency, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are right now. I'm thinking that right now, as we're just getting IMOC started, we're in the middle of an adoption. That's an important and big task that we meet bi-weekly. That would be every other week. My goal is that over time, we're reducing it to monthly. And then in times when we do have an adoption and there's a lot going on and we need to meet bi-weekly again, then we can. I like having the flexibility of that. But today we're meeting on a Tuesday, but our typical meeting date will be a Thursday. So that's another thing I wanted to share. So any input on either of those items? Okay. And I'll give another pause for that while you're thinking. But one of the reminders I want to give are the updates. That's one of the reasons why we created this interface via the virtual, whether it's Google Hangouts or Google Meets or whatever comes down the pike. I'm grateful to technology. Thank you, Oscar, and your team for all that you've done to make this a reality for us. It meets a couple of goals. One is being able for those members, for example, who are still at their campuses, being able to, take care of business on campus, can be logged in. And then in addition to that, it gives us a recording so that whoever needs to go back and view or review, it has the ability to do that. So while the frequency is a little bit higher right now, the goal is to decrease that as we're able, and then also have these options. So it's not overload of having to face-to-face go somewhere every other week. Okay. All right, thank you. So let's review what a typical agenda will look like, because we'll pretty much have a standing agenda, and then we'll have the items that fit under the appropriate section. And as if this agenda needs to grow or change, then that's what we'll do. But we'll always begin with our welcome. We'll have a recap from our previous meeting. I'll talk about that in more depth in just a minute. It is nice to have someone who takes minutes. I don't think it's necessary that they be copious notes, but to be able to give a recap at the beginning of the next meeting is also very helpful. So I'll ask if there's anyone who's open to serving in that capacity. Allotment report, we'll always review the allotment report just for an update to see where we're at, where we are with the amount of funds that are in our instructional materials allotment and where expenditures have been made. We'll cover old business, we'll cover new business. Like right now, for example, that will be not only campus, but campus and department updates and requests. So let's say, technology's been working on something they want us to be aware of. This would be a place where they would fit. Let's say elementary is having an issue, or even a particular campus. This is where the funnel would come to bring this item up in front of us. So a lot of times this ends up moving to, it kind of lives in both old business, new business, just depending where we are. But I think the input from the campuses is very important as well. And then we'll always know our next meeting date is Able. And that is a summary of how the agenda will run, typically meeting to meeting. So before we leave that item, is there anyone who is a note taker who would already naturally be taking notes and would like to serve in our recap capacity? No takers? Okay, we'll find a way to do that. We'll have the document to be able to review, so that's not a problem. I just think that's a good way to end and start by recapping some major points and notes. If anyone via Hangouts would like to volunteer, just send me an email. All right, so let's move on then into our actual meat of the agenda, and it starts with our allotment report. So I have two documents today to share, and these we do have that we can pass around. So I'm going to start here with you, Madi. And this is both a budget overview. That budget overview was prepared kind of as a recap as I entered and assessed where we stand with instructional materials currently. And in preparation for the board meeting when Dr. Lamb was going to present, we wanted to be sure he had something to answer questions and be able to address where we are with our allotment. So that is our internal document. So in the next meeting, I may introduce what we'll be using to give a little bit more of detail to where expenditures are and made. It'll look similar to this, or shall I say it'll have similar information. When you look at, so the document I'm referring to is this one, the budget overview. So this is more of an internal account. The way I like to look at a document like this, let's say you personally at home are reconciling your checking account, this would be more your documentation, what you came up with. how you in your own household are managing that account. So this is our internal method of managing the account by using our budget overview. TEA, via a platform called EMAT, shares with us an allotment report. And once you study this report and get to know it, what you're going to find is that it does not have a lot of detail. So for example, I'll take an expenditure that was made on November 26th. It's the last one that's listed in the middle section there. That expenditure, the description is instructional materials. So that 8,700, if someone wants to know where was that 8,700 spent, we'd have to go deeper into the system to pull at that amount. And so I'm not finding the exact match on our overview, but it's got to be there somewhere because our numbers are adding up. Let me see. Yeah, I'm thinking it might be. So not the best example to share, but that's the general idea, that our overview is going to give us more detailed information. The 12,000 one is on there. And that one is, for example, you can see the Discovery Education streaming. So there we're able to see that detail. And that's what we intend to share and provide. Okay, so as I mentioned in the report to the board, you can see there at the top, the total allotment currently, and these two numbers are matching both from our budget overview and the allotment report. Right now, our in balance is about $2.1 million. And that's what we're rolling forward going into the next biennium. Now, what we need to take into consideration is that in the next biennium, so right now in this biennium, we have our K-8 adoption like we've been talking about. Next year, we have the high school allotment as well, or the high school proclamation as well. So we're going to be needing the funds that are coming in from that biennium for that adoption as well. So we are hopeful that with the decisions we're able to make, we can meet the needs that our students will have for the materials related to the ELAR adoption. Okay, so right now we know that our overall major priority is the ELAR adoption, and that's where we're pinning most of these funds to go. But as you can see, there have been some other expenditures that have been needed to make some of the resources that are used on a daily basis, the iStation. I know there were a lot of conversations as a district to integrate and bring in Achieve 3000. We from the IMA provided a portion of that, not the entire amount, not even close, but did support a portion of that. So you can see there in the budget overview some of the expenditures that have been made. And for example, you'll see an expenditure of continuing adoption. So if something is needed because of an increase, we had more students come in, the funds are allocated from this budget to take care of that. Okay. All right, questions before we leave the allotment report or comments?
Just, I'm not including, off the 2.1, we still need to take off the salaries for this school year,
Okay,
because that's not included.
okay,
What you
so,
see there in July, that was last year's.
okay, so what Ms. Zamora is referencing is that in the, are you looking at the allotment or the overview? I know it's on both, but,
So the allotment report, what you see on 7/17,
okay,
that was the 2017-18 salaries. So we still need to charge the 18-19 salaries.
Okay.
So off of the 2.1, that's an additional amount that's going to be charged.
Okay. Okay, so that is an expenditure that has been made in the technology department utilizing the IMA funds. And so what Ms. Zamora is clarifying is that it's a recurring expenditure, and that expenditure was made for the previous school year, but for the current school year, that expenditure will be need to made again. So that 2.1 million will see a decrease of about another $237,000. Okay.
Is that typically made in July, or is it typically?
Yeah, it's a reimbursement. School year? It's reimbursed. Last year was done at the end, but this year it should be done for every 36 months.
Oh, it dropped down. Mhm.
Yes, yes.
All the payroll records and what.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that input. The next item on our agenda is new business, and the primary focus we have is our Proclamation 2019. As I mentioned earlier, there's a core adoption team that has been working, and that actually happened very organically. My interfacing with the ELAR coordinators, and then also bringing in representation from other key areas like our bilingual ESL and our special education. So we do have one member of the core adoption team here. If you'd like a moment to think and maybe share your thoughts with us of the work we've done, Ms. Logan, I would love for you to do that. But take just a minute while I'm sharing a little bit more, and then you can just give a little insider thoughts on the work we've done, what that experience has been like for you. And so that core adoption team has met several times, 4 or 5 times at least. I attended back when I first arrived, so early September, mid-September, a Region 10 extravaganza that was held so that we could go and see some of the materials and talk to some of the publishers and things of that nature. So I attended that in Region 10. And then as a team, we went to Kilgore just a couple weeks ago. Texas ASCD was offering a session on principles, philosophies, theories, the things you need to be thinking about during an adoption. We left very pleased. Our heads were full of information, but upon reflection, it seemed that we have a really solid plan. And so we were very pleased to see everything kind of integrating and going in the right direction. And then there was another follow-up extravaganza at Region 11, and Ms. Logan was able to pop in for just a little bit to that one. So we're making all the efforts we can to go out and view the resources and supports, and then also bring those internally. So we're going to talk more about that here in a minute. But Ms. Logan, would you like to share with us?
As Dr. Martinez said, we had the opportunity to go to Kilgore and get that information, and we also had the opportunity to go to Region 11 and go to one of the extravaganzas and see what the publishers had to offer. I got to see 2 of the primary and the big publishers present their information, and so we've done a lot of looking through, making sure that campuses have the textbooks for teachers to kind of review and look at and submit feedback on, as well as getting their input in the needs assessment survey. And so we've kind of done a lot of work on the front end of it, and are looking forward to the new adoption with the new TEKS and making sure that that alignment is there for us.
Thank you, Ms. Logan. I appreciate that. So, for example, as she mentioned, yes, she mentioned the needs assessment. We sent a survey out. Some of the things that we're doing when we connected with Learning List to partner with them and get their support in this process, we already had our own framework in place. And so them coming in helps us to strengthen that framework. And so one of the things that they recommended that we do is to send out a needs assessment survey. And so we sent that survey out to we sent it out to be given directly to our ELAR teachers. So that touched the teachers, and we got back about 154 responses. So we were pleased with the responses that we got. We've now accumulated that data, and then we've also received a draft rubric from Learning List. So now we're going to be informing the rubric from the work of the needs assessment survey. So one of the things that has evolved through the process, because there are so many core stakeholders, and when we bring everyone together, it's a lot of people in the room. And so the work of the core adoption team is really leading the work and helping us to narrow down some of the decisions before we open it up and put it in front of our staff to say, let's make some selections and let's keep this work going. So we intend to bring that work here to you, to IMOC, and we would like your thoughts, your feedback, your input, recommendations as we're moving the process forward. Okay, so we are at the end. I'll touch on our next meeting date, and my goal is to meet with the core adoption team and have them to share some information with you at the next meeting. Okay. We're firming up the timeline, but in the spring, some of the key things that will happen is we'll narrow down the publishers to the top 2, so that then we have internal presentations. We're going to invite the publishers to come in and present to our Proclamation 29 subcommittee. Those will be the folks that we're asking and expecting to attend. Anyone would be welcome to attend. And then after the narrowing down, then that's when we'll actually have the selection. Our goal is to have a selection by March 15th. 15th, going back to what Ms. Corson said, so that we can turn around by April, get that board approval, and then get to ordering as quickly as we can. If we could be ordering in May, that would be fabulous. One thing that I know is a concern, for example, is that even the publishers right now are still finding out costs of materials and things of that nature. So they just submitted some numbers to TEA, so we don't have that when they come and share materials with us. They're not also giving us a price list to where we can start even making that comparison as well. So it's a moving work that we're keeping up with. Anything on the Proclamation 2019 work or subcommittee before we leave that? Okay. All right. The only other item that remains then is our next meeting will be January 17th. That's a Thursday at 4 p.m. And I'll allot an hour for that meeting. And that's all I have today. If there are no more further questions or comments, our meeting's adjourned.
Just send us a meeting invite for that one, I guess.
Yes, I will. Okay. Thank you so much.